What's going on, beautiful people? It's your real estate go-to, Deontay. Here, as always, with another reaction video. I found this one. I haven't watched it either, but I thought it was very interesting based on the title. You know, home prices will never be the same. And if you've been taking a look at the content for a while, you should have an idea of why this is probably going to be accurate. But as always with these videos, we take a look and see from thought leaders, industry professionals, what's going on in the market, how it translates to our current real estate market in Orlando and Central Florida, and how we can use it to our advantage. So we're going to see 2023 market crash, big salacious title. So, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe on the video. Let's go.
After 3 years and 5 months of improbable price growth, the U.S. housing market faces its most critical summer yet. You can feel the recession fatigue setting in. Summer after summer, the common belief was that this immense bubble would pop and the exponential gains we have seen would fade away to reasonable pre-2020 prices. After all, in this short time span, a typical house in America saw its value increase by over 38%.
True.
This fact, along with added pressure by interest rates, caused many buyers to believe that a crash was imminent, and rightfully so. But as the days turned to years, this buyer optimism began fading. A new narrative emerged. The crash is canceled, and a new reality for housing in America has become the norm. This narrative was further supported by the most recent Case-Shiller release, which showed that prices have increased for the first time in months following what seemed to be the beginning of a potential crash. And while buyers have essentially given up following back-to-back years of extreme frustration, the reality behind the new numbers suggests a different story. There is no recovery. The crash is still underway. Now, before we go down this path of
The crash is still underway. I'm interested to see where they're going with this.
Showcasing this crash hidden behind the new numbers, there's something else that needs to be understood. You see, if we go back to the summer of 2019, the housing market looked like a different world. A typical home in my Midwestern suburb would cost you around $160,000, and with interest rates hovering around 3.75% that summer, that hypothetical home could be bought for around $1,000 a month.
Now, different markets as you see. So Orlando in 2019, I think we were around like the 265, 300 in regards to the median price point. For homes in Orlando, interest rates similar. So it was a solid, for lack of better terms, a balanced market here, but prices weren't that low.
That's if we assume 10% down and average payments for taxes and insurance. Now, if we fast forward to today, that same home can cost up to $240,000, and the typical interest rate has gone from 3.75% to nearly 6.43%. What that means is that new buyers today in the same neighborhood will be paying around $2,000 a month, which represents a 100% increase in payments in less than 4 years. In fact, using the growth rate since 2019, if for some reason a slowdown or crash doesn't occur, the same house that cost $160,000 in 2019 would cost around $748,000 in 2029. Wow. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is that these growth rates are simply unsustainable and affordability is already at record lows. Simply put, the housing market has turned completely insane. This isn't just the opinion of a random YouTuber, but it's also the opinion of this man, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. While chairmans in the past...
So what do you think is the solution? What do you think is the solution for home affordability in the Orlando and Central Florida area, guys? Drop it in the comment section below. I'm curious what you think is the solution to what we're dealing with. Because yes, mortgages are higher. We still have people moving in from different states who are putting large down payments down, offering over asking price, and making it difficult for people who are born and raised in Florida, who have saved for 5 to 6 years and has just enough for closing costs and down payment and getting outbid. And as the years pass and the interest rates go up and prices go up, they're getting boxed out further and further from their dream home. So what do you think is the solution?
Were afraid of calling out clear bubbles, Powell made history by directly acknowledging the housing bubble in a speech he did back in December where he had this to say.
In terms of housing, there are two things. One, there's sort of a longer run housing shortage that we have. But in the meantime, we had coming out of the pandemic rates were very low. People wanted to buy houses. They wanted to get out of the the cities and buy houses in the suburbs because of COVID. And so you really had a housing bubble. You had housing prices going up at very unsustainable levels and overheating and that kind of thing. So now the housing market's going to go through the other side of that and hopefully come out in a better place between supply and demand. But
Powell also stated in various other speeches that he hopes to accomplish a reset in the market to restore balance. Essentially, the Fed has a duty in stopping these insane price gains we've seen over the past few years.
And you see that with mortgage rates, right? Mortgage rates, especially early or around the fall and winter of 2022, definitely put a screeching halt to the crazy buyers and market frenzy that was spurred on by COVID.
But there is a problem. You see, while Powell can raise rates in an attempt to slow things down, it unfortunately affects only one side of the housing equation, and that is demand. He really can't do much about the supply issues, and as it turns out, this entire recovery thesis and this tiny jump in prices isn't based on demand whatsoever. In fact, demand figures have been showing signs of slowing down. Instead, the entire market is supported on the legs of low supply. And what I mean by that is simple. People are refusing to sell their house unless it's for relocation, divorce, or death. This has caused...
I literally just recorded my national market report talking about this in regards to supply. Supply right now is at about 2.7%, which means that it's about 3 months, not 2.7%, excuse me. Our supply nationwide is at about 2.7 months. Now, what that means for a balanced market, you typically want supply to be at 4 to 5 months. Anything under 3 creates a seller's market, right? And with supply being under that, you kind of see when a home does come on the market, it's multiple offers because they're few and far between, especially the ones that are moving ready to go.
Active inventory to contract to record lows in many parts of the country. But on the other side of that, demand has not recovered. It's still in free fall. Looking over Redfin data, we can see that for the week of April 27th, the Redfin Homebuyer Demand Index is down over 18% year over year. Google searches for home sales have plummeted 20% since 2022, and showings based on data from Showing Time are slowing down as well. Almost every predictive measure recording demand is in freefall. This includes application data and a 30-year rate. So how can this market continue to prosper? Well, to summarize quickly, it can't. The market today is held up by the tiny glimmer of hope that is extremely tight supply, but once sellers get a look at the cliff ahead, the reality will begin to change quickly. Every year since 2020, we have seen the median sale price go up during the spring. You can see that from this chart that starting around the end of February, prices typically bottom out and begin their rise for the spring selling season. This climb continues well into the...
And that's congruent with what I've said a lot. May and June in Orlando specifically, those are where you will see the highest number of homes sold. And that's going back, and I stopped looking 10 years, right? Going back 10 years. You always see that's the highest number in regards to home sales. So it's a great time right now to put your home on the market as a home seller, not only because you have low supply, which would then create more demand, but also because this is typically the season where majority of buyers are out looking.
The summer and peaks in August right before the fall season approaches. Last year, prices began noticeably falling off at the end of June, and this seasonality is something to watch as we enter the summer. Right now, it is true. Prices are rising from the winter lows, but they're failing to keep up with the pace of last year, and seller delusion is increasing. If you look at this chart, which shows the median asking price, you would assume and say that this year is off to yet another hot start. But flip back to the actual sale price graph, and you'll notice that the ask prices are beginning to deviate heavily from the actual sale prices. Sellers are being forced to come back down to reality, and as the market freezes with rates continuing to climb up, the domino that is the housing market will begin to topple over. We all know that the Case-Shiller is a rather delayed look at prices, and the latest reading was assisted by a fall in rates that began last November and continued until February. But now the true test begins. Outside of housing, the entire economy looks to be slowing down. Every single recession reading is flashing red, and even prominent businessmen with hundreds of real-time indicators in dozens of different industries are starting to see the writing that's on the wall. The U.S. is entering a recession. In an interview with CNBC this past month, Warren Buffett, a man who rarely ever speaks out in regards to poor economic conditions, stated that there's clear indicators within his massive portfolio of businesses that showcases this potential trouble ahead. Take a listen to his own words in an interview from a few weeks ago.
But you think a recession is more likely now than maybe you would have said 6 months ago?
Well, I think most of our managers would say that they are surprised at where they are now compared to how they thought they were going to feel 6 months ago at this point.
And not
in a lot of
pleasantly.
businesses, but not in the insurance business, you know. But I think the people at the railroad are somewhat surprised that car loadings aren't a little higher rather than a little lower, you know, somewhat lower. But most of the stuff we carry is essential, but it reflects what's happening.
And he's not the only one. Elon Musk has also publicly stated that he's seeing clear data that trouble is brewing in the near future. In a recent Twitter thread, Musk was very vocal criticizing Fed policy, saying that Powell's actions have already gone too far and that a severe downturn in demand is already underway. But you might be asking yourself, why does any of this matter?
Yeah, I am curious, the next 18 months, right? None of us have a crystal ball, but indicators like he's mentioning, dealing with inflation, global politics, all these things, it's very interesting to see what's going to end up happening and how it's going to impact what we have going on. I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball. I just do my best to look at the lens of what we have going on now and speculate how it's going to impact us. I know one thing's for sure, people always need shelter. Right, you're always going to need a place to live. People are always going to be having babies, right? And all relationships aren't going to work, right? So what that means is people are going to need to buy a house, and people are always going to need to sell a house. It's just all about how and the method and the strategy that has to be put in place to do so in each different economic situation.
Especially when you consider that we're talking about housing here, not the general economy or stock prices. And it matters because housing, as it turns out, is one of the last things to roll over in a recession. In the 2008 crash, for example, home prices didn't bottom out until February of 2012. This was almost 3 years after the stock market bottomed out in March of 2009 and nearly 2.5 years after unemployment peaked at 10% in October of 2009. That's to say that while prices look to be moving down slowly, the real estate market is usually the last thing to go after everything else crashes before it. It's only after the stock market falls and everyone begins to lose their job that we see home prices bottom out like they did in February of 2012. So in summary, there is growing evidence that a recession is likely by the end of the year, and with housing demand falling off a cliff and business...
No, I do disagree in regards to the end of the year. Once again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think it's the end of the year.
Slowing overall, this may be the 2006 of our generation. One last push before this bubble that has been growing since 2012 finally pops. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe.
That was a really good, interesting video. Very interesting video, some thought-provoking things. If you guys have questions, you guys have my contact information. It's in the description below. Call me, text me, send me a direct message. Would love to be able to answer your questions in regards to you living in the Central Florida and Orlando area and how our current economic situation, our current real estate situation, how we can take an advantage for you and your family and still get you what you want in regards to becoming a homeowner or selling your home to move to a different location. So as always, as you guys know, in real estate, there are only two people that can get you exactly what you want, okay? That's D and you. Talk soon, guys.